One thing that the film really does is it captures that relationship between Freddie and the band. That's what this movie does that nothing else can give you, is an opportunity to investigate who these guys were and really get to know Freddie in a way that no one else has ever seen him. Think of Bohemian Rhapsody. It's obviously a song everyone's heard. I think everyone can distinctly point out the first time they've heard that song. You can read into that the lyrics and the music of that song and come up with so many reasons for why he's saying what he's saying.
Soundbite.
Okay.
What did I just do?
Freddie and Mary met. It seems like they kind of immediately found this connection that is what carried them through their relationship and through their lives together. And it just seems like that kind of very rare thing you find with someone.
It takes a long time to develop a story like this because you're dealing with 4, 5, 6 characters' life story. And I have to say, the real band, Brian, Roger, Jim Beach, have had so much of that patience with me over the years.
Live Aid was the one performance that we wanted to get move for move exactly the way they performed it on the day.
But we studied it.
And we did it from beginning to end?
Like meticulously, like what the angle of the leg would be and like the angle of the arm and where we all were in relation to each other, all that kind of thing.
And I've been at previews with this movie where there's been 250 people stomping their feet, clapping their hands. And that's what Freddie created, people coming together.
Can you do the fandango?
Can you do the fandango is my question.
Actually, Joe was just showing
He
us
was
how
just
to do
about
it.
to show us how.
No,
Carry on,
Explain
Joe.
to us what the fandango is.
No, well,
Joe.
this is a well-known fact that it's just a different iteration of the Macarena. It's just basically that in reverse. So you start from the head and you end up on the hips and you come out, you know what I mean? But
On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, go.
we were
Joe
taught different dances by our movement coaches, actually.
seriously?
Yeah, like Polly and Liam taught us
Listen,
many different dances.
I'll tell you
that
how
we
to do
on
the
stage.
fandango. I don't really
Let's
don't
go,
know.
let's do it.
I really
so
don't
excited.
know. I'm the worst dancer. I'd be like,
Pretty great.
you guys are like, yeah, great. Okay, moving on. Okay, so better to be a rock star? Because I would think as an actor, a lot of your performance, especially in film, has to be small. It has to be contained. You're on a set, nobody's talking. And then you go and you do something like this where you have to be like big and loud. Cooler to be a rock star or cooler to be an actor, do you think?
I'm going to say actor.
You're gonna say rock star? I was
I'm
gonna say
gonna say-
actor because you can do all the other things.
Right.
You can be a
Oh,
rock star.
yeah.
You can be a baseball player. You can be all the dreams that you had as a kid as an actor.
Sure.
So I sort of feel like that's maybe a little better because you get to.
And what were you gonna say? Are you gonna change your answer now?
No, because I'm rock star in the vein of like David Bowie, who got to be in the film The Labyrinth as well.
Right.
So you can do
So
both.
good.
You can do both. But what did you have more? What was your like? What do you think?
I
would be
have
cooler
to
for you?
say, just being on stage
Yeah.
and getting to perform in the style of Freddie
Yeah.
Mercury are some of the most fun, coolest things you could ever do as a human being.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just put that out there. It is the most fun I've ever had performing.
Yeah.
We're doing the concert scenes.
You know what's cool though is that like even though like the extras were there for us, they were like excited when we came out on stage. Like we would come out one by one and they would like cheer for us and like be
Best
like
feeling in the
be
world,
like,
right?
We love you, Queen. It's just like the weirdest. Like that was awesome.
One moment that I actually cried at watching this morning was when you're sort of meeting with the band for the first time and they sort of make fun of your incisors and you say I was born with 4 extra incisors, but then you sort of like turn it around and turn it on them. Did you have anything you overcame or like something that stood out that maybe when you first started acting people said that'll never work and now it's kind of like that's your like thing?
Ooh.
I grew up in Birmingham. I mean, that's quite a lot. I'm still trying to deal with it.
That's a lot to overcome.
Yeah, it's tough. It's going to be a lifetime's work. So I'm doing my best.
Doing all right.
You're doing good. You're here.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
To overcome, look, I mean, I think it's fabulous that I am the guy that got chosen to play Freddie Mercury. I don't know that that would have happened 10 years ago, so I just can put it from that perspective. I think that's a significant change in the way Hollywood works.
Yeah.
I was an actor as a child as well, so I went.
Always cool?
Every day of my life. No, so I went through a very awkward phase,
Yes.
as children do.
Yes.
And so that transition was sort of something where you definitely had to like, I don't know, reintroduce yourself into this industry, even though you've been acting for 10 years or whatever. You just sort of have to be like, no, I can still do this. And so that was sort of a thing to overcome, I guess.
What advice can you give to Lucy about that?
I just quit. You'll never make it. You'll just never make it in this business.
So what was your favorite birthday?
Oh man, my favorite birthday. I can say I guess I have a twin brother, so we've had a lot of birthdays together, and I think there was a birthday where we each got our separate gifts, so that was nice.
You never get separate gifts?
No, I mean, it was the first time it happened where it wasn't something we had to share.
That wasn't a good birthday.
No. My birthday, I had a girlfriend once who actually rented out a bowling rink for me and my brother. It was like a small bowling alley, so just a couple lanes, but invited all my friends and I didn't know about it. And that's something really cool to show up to.
Do you like being surprised?
Who doesn't like being surprised? You know, there was so much that I didn't know about Freddie Mercury, and I think anyone watching this will be surprised. The film itself, they'll be surprised by the many different sides of Freddie. You know, those intimate moments with Mary Austin and Jim Hutton in the moment were very precious moments to me, and sometimes you don't think that those are the first things that are going to come to mind when he's talking about his sexuality or experiencing his sexuality. As an actor, it's how am I going to do what he does on stage? But you know, those things could be just as powerful, and I think they are in the movie. Obviously, you know, I'm fascinated by how he owns the stage. He is like no other. He connects with everybody in the audience, and you know, that was a really, really enjoyable thing to do in the film. All those concert sequences, where not only did we, you know, perform the songs, but you know how you're at a concert and sometimes the artist engages with you and says a few words. Well, once I got into character as Freddie, I could play around with the audience quite a bit in between takes, and that kind of lifts your confidence in the moment as well.
The performances that was just like, okay, is it Rami? Who is it on stage? Is it Freddie? So how many billion, trillion times have you watched the Live Aid, the original one, the show, and to really move like him, to be him?
I think between myself and the other three gents in the band, we probably contributed to maybe 100,000 hits on YouTube.
For me, it was also a reminder how hard a show business can be and how you can kind of break down because of all the pressure from the inside, from the outside. So how do you handle right now your the rising public interest in you? Because it's getting more and more and more.
I think perhaps after this this film comes out, I'll have to really digest that a little bit more. Right now, all I'm focused on is Bohemian Rhapsody, so I can't really see outside of that. But you know, for me, it's been a very slow burn acting-wise. So I've had people approach me throughout the days, and now sometimes it's more and more. Sometimes at dinner, and I just try to look at it as, you know, I'm doing something that people really appreciate. So it's quite a special thing, and it's not lost on me that being in this business, you're not going to be able to hang on to all of your anonymity and privacy. But you know, I learned from Freddie quite a bit. He was a very private man, and I think from my perspective, I totally understand why. I have no life like his, you know, but I can understand it and respect it.
Bohemian Rhapsody is a kind of crazy ride. I was able to be in LA and Vegas 2 weeks ago, where we just fly from LA to Vegas and watched Queen at Freddie's birthday. You were there as well and enjoyed the show. So can you just describe the whole Bohemian Rhapsody experience for you from day one till kind of right now?
That's gonna take an hour.
Yeah, okay, I have time.
Well, you know, it's been this great evolution, because at first I thought, you know, this is a monumental task. Slowly but surely, it's been remarkable to have such a good surround myself with people who have just lifted me up, and you know, the band, the other actors have been so great in helping me to one, exist as him on stage and in front of the camera, because you know, they gave me all the help one could ever ask for. And Brian May, Roger Taylor, Jim Beach, the band's manager, have all been such a great help throughout all of this. So I've had incredible support. I feel very loved by so many people, and I think that's what's got me through it. A lot of love and affection.
Can't wait to see it again. Enjoy everything, and you deserve it. It was breathtaking, really.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Hope you had a good time in Vegas.
Great performance, the both of you. And I was watching it and thinking that for you on a day-to-day basis, how exhausting and famishing was it to be Freddie Mercury? I mean, doesn't he take the whole energy from you?
He takes the energy from everybody. I really couldn't have done it without Gwyl and the rest of the cast and crew lifting me up each and every single day. And you know, I would look at Gwyl's performance and see someone who was working just as hard as I was, and still giving me all the strength to step up and deliver day in and day out. So, like the family, the message of the film, one of them is family. There was very much that environment on set.
And this is exactly what I loved about the film, that of course Freddie was the center point, but it was a whole collaborative work. This band created magic together, and each one did it. How much did you enjoy that aspect?
Yeah, it's what makes Queen so unique, I think. Freddie says it towards the end of the film. It's like when he went off and tried to do his solo stuff, he wasn't getting the pushbacks from John. He wasn't getting the analysis from Brian. And it's what they all had to offer as individuals, and to challenge each other is what made them so unique, I think.
In Beirut, it was all about Bohemian Rhapsody for me when I was growing up. Bismillah, we could pronounce it correctly, and I'm sure you can too. What Queen music did you grow up listening to, or did you?
That one, Bismillah. Yeah.
Bismillah.
Yeah, I remember hearing that song for the first time and just being so moved and taken aback by it. It was like, it's a feeling you get from watching a movie or any other piece of art that you've sat down for an extended period of time, except this happened in 6 minutes, and it took my breath away.
Yeah, same here. What about you? Which song really resonated the most?
When I was younger, that was the tune. It was Bohemian Rhapsody, because it's such a journey. You start that song and you just go on this emotional roller coaster, and also just the rock out section at the end, headbanging in the car with my family on endless road trips was always a highlight as well.
How was it recreating Live Aid, knowing that there weren't 70,000 people in that set, but the energy was the same? It must have also been quite an endeavor.
It was. That was the first thing we started with on day one, which was a bit outrageous at the time, but ended up kind of fusing us together as a band. We had quite a bit of fans out there, which gave us enough of that spirit. I don't know if I would have wanted 10,000 people or more out there, but we'd watched the original version so many times and worked on it, rehearsed it for quite a while, 4 weeks, even longer. So to come out there and see it for the first time, the set, the stage, the fans waiting outside it was like peeling back the curtain and stepping out of a dream and into reality.
Did Brian share how they felt that day? Because it's not only how the audience felt, it's really how they felt. They must have been baffled by themselves.
Yeah, and you know, you've got to bear in mind they hadn't played together for a while.
Yeah.
They didn't know what to expect. They didn't have sound checks. No band had a sound check that day. They weren't playing on their set, on their stage with their production. It was like all was being laid out, you know, bare in front of everybody. And so there was a certain amount of fear and trepidation. But equally, they were one of the few bands that got together and rehearsed and prepared for it. And they had played stadiums before. So they knew how to, Freddie particularly knew how to engage with 70,000 people and letting every single one of those 70,000 people think that he's speaking to them individually.
When you're an actor, it's a little bit of the opposite. You kind of hide behind a character. So how exposed do you feel when you have, like, you know, so many people that you have to really engage with? It's a bit more like theater than it is like cinema.
It is, yeah. And I've studied theater. We both studied theater, so I think it wasn't so foreign to us. But you know, it's an adrenaline rush to be in front of the camera, but to be on stage as a rock star is something completely different. What I found the most fun was in between takes, wanting to keep the audience entertained. So. You know, that's when I would do a little bit of Freddie off book, so to speak. And sometimes we caught it on film, and a little bit of it actually makes it into the picture.
How easy or difficult is it to embody somebody who was so unapologetically himself?
It's quite liberating, actually. You know, I think that's another one of the messages of the film is just to be your most authentic self. Yeah, he just lived his life his own way, unapologetic, as you said. He didn't want to be categorized or identified in any particular way. And I think that's what we're all striving for in today's society. I think it'll be a great message for generations to come.
Do you think it's a message that most of the, you know, cast and crew and Brian May want to convey to the audiences?
The message
of authenticity in everything, I think, in art, in personality, in everything.
Absolutely. I think it's something that they've made central to their identity as a band with Queen is to celebrate individuality, to celebrate and not to doubt yourself, but just to commit to it and have a joy in doing so.
I've always been a Freddie Mercury fan for many reasons, but what do you love most about him now that you've been him for a short while?
I don't want to be redundant, but I think that's it. Just how free he was, and I mean, work towards it. I think what I love is, you know, here's this story of a young immigrant kid growing up in London who's just moved to London at 18 from Zanzibar, very strict family. I can understand that and relate to that. Having Egyptian parents, and then, you know, believing in yourself and going against the grain to live out your dream is something that I think he makes possibly more achievable for the world at large. I think he just throws his fists in the air for the dreamers, and I like to include myself, both of us, in that.
Exactly. I mean, same here. Not becoming a doctor or a muhandis or a banker or any of those very.
No.
It's not the same in England, right? You're not expected to always like grow up to be a doctor.
Well, actually, my dad's a doctor, my brother's a doctor, my sister's a nurse, so that was probably expected of me. I'm the disappointment of the family.
أختي دكتورة كمان.
أكيد أختي دكتورة كمان.
Yeah.
And when I told my parents I was going to be a TV presenter, it was like. Muzia, which is a bad way to say presenter in Arabic. But you know, the music is also a character, obviously, in the film. So how much music was around you all throughout filming this?
It was constant, wasn't it? Yeah, we'd always have something to be working towards. So we finished Live Aid. There were 6 songs that we performed in that, and then only a couple of weeks later, we had a whole new heap of songs to play in the next. Load of concerts, and it just kept on coming like that. So in between every take we'd have guitars and instruments on set, and we'd try and find a little space to go and practice, and it was constant.
And finally, Rami, how much would it mean to you being nominated for awards and for an Oscar for being Freddie Mercury in particular?
Oh,
Because I'm rooting.
You're rooting. Yeah, I mean, we all dream of that when we're young, I think. Maybe not everybody, but the ultimate award is that I've made it here today, and tomorrow I get to celebrate this film with Gwyl, the rest of the cast, the original members of Queen.
In Wembley.
At Wembley Arena, in front of an audience of, almost 7,000. If I want more than that, I'm asking for trouble. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Rami. How are you?
I'm not checking my phone to talk to friends. I'm just actually looking at talking points.
That's okay.
All right.
You're giving yourself ideas.
I'm trying to get new ideas because I've exhausted everything.
Well, it's supposed to be my job to bring new questions.
Let's see.
But now I feel a bit too much pressure on myself.
No, let's see.
Probably have.
If it's not new, do I just say
Yeah,
next?
you can just, exactly. I may run out of questions very quickly, however.
Okay.
So hopefully that isn't the case. Anyway, it is lovely to see you, Rami.
Lovely to see you.
Is this possibly the most pressure that you felt doing a role on screen? Because Freddie Mercury is right up there.
Yeah, I can't think of. There's a handful of people who I think would be the hardest to play, and I chose one of them. So yes, it was the most amount of pressure I've ever felt as an actor.
I mean, Freddie was he was so sure of who he wanted to be and who he was meant to be. And I think even in the film, one of the lines is, "I'm exactly who I'm meant to be." Do you feel like that? Do you feel you're exactly who you're meant to be?
I love that line in the film, and that taught me so much about how I wanted to be going forward, and I think it's a lesson a very valuable lesson that everyone can take from this. I think what Freddie Mercury revolutionized was this idea that you can be your most authentic self.
But do you feel you're exactly who you're meant to be?
Next question.
Ah, what?
That's not about me, it's about the movie.
I know, but it's nice to relate it to...
Yeah, do I feel? I'm still learning every day.
That Live Aid scene was just phenomenal. I think everyone feels the same. And when I was watching Lucy playing Mary from the side of the stage, it very much made me think, who would you like to watch from the side of the stage perform and have a moment like they must have had watching Queen?
I would have really loved to have seen Freddie Mercury play. I think it's so tragic and sad that I missed out on that.
I mean, yeah, I think we all feel like that.
Yeah.
But how about who we've got around now?
I have no idea.
I mean, Lucy's picked Paul McCartney.
Yes.
The boys wanted Beatles and Led Zeppelin, if I can get Led Zeppelin back together.
Led Zeppelin. I went to see U2 the other day, and that was really special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Give me I'll think on this.
Okay.
Who would I really like
See,
to
at least
see?
I brought something which you hadn't.
Yeah, no, it's good.
That's what we were trying to
Yeah,
do.
I wouldn't mind seeing Keith Richards on the guitar.
Oh.
I'd love to see Keith Richards and Brian May have a showdown guitar-wise.
You could
just the
probably
two.
make that happen.
I don't think I could, no. But that would be pretty special, right?
Yeah. You've got half the contacts there now, so.
Yeah, I'm 50% there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do want to touch on it though, because everyone obviously is talking about the directing side of things.
Yeah.
Do you think there maybe needs to be a change to the regulations so that more than one director can be credited? Because I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't know how it all impacts everything. But obviously, Dexter did play a part.
Absolutely.
So, do you think there maybe needs to be a change?
I would love to see a change, yeah. I do. I think, Dexter worked extremely hard on this film, put so much passion into it. So, yeah, I think he gets a very, very well-deserved producer credit on this. But, yeah, I would love to see him get a director credit as well.
For you, what's going to be the most special moment that you take away from this whole thing?
The entire... you are asking good questions. The most special thing, I think... the camaraderie with this group of people, I got to play someone who is one of the greatest human beings, obviously rock stars, but his personality, his humanity, I mean, he was a real humanitarian, the way he treated people and what he offered to society and the world at large, and he means everything to me. And to get out there on stage and emulate him, try to replicate him, fit in his shoes in some way was daunting. But I had the help of such astonishing, terrific actors who lifted me up, and hopefully I did the same for them every day. The experience with this crew and all the craftspeople, it was unlike anything I've ever done before, because when you're trying to live up to Freddie Mercury and Queen, everybody is bringing a level of their game, I think, above and beyond what they have done before. So the experience as a whole was just magnified in a way that, I don't know, for some reason I think we all felt we were levitating every day working there.
Well, I thought you were incredible, and from what I've heard from the other guys, they thought you were incredible as well. So, congratulations, Rami. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. You did stump me a couple times.
I've seen somewhere as well, the producers said the first time they met you that you were born to play Freddie Mercury. Did you kind of know that a little bit when you were going to the audition for the first time?
Well, no, because they said, we love what you're doing on Mr. Robot. And I thought, wow, well, that's the antithesis of Freddie Mercury.
The complete opposite.
Yeah, I was like, are they pulling my leg? Are they you having a laugh? Yeah, so I said, really? But, I mean, was that it? I think after they saw that, they saw a few other things and said, okay, he's not Elliot Alderson. He's not just a recluse who sits behind a computer. Because if you thought about Elliot Alderson getting out on a dance floor and singing at the top of his lungs, that would probably go horribly wrong. Yeah, they saw that. 6 hours later, I was out of the office holding a documentary, a couple books, and I just drove home and just this surreal kind of fog of, is this happening? And I guess it did. Look at where I am now. Can
And
you
so,
believe this?
what goes into becoming Freddie? Like you mentioned there, you got given, was it a documentary? Was that what you just watched that on repeat, or was it like YouTube videos or
Oh
interviews?
man, I
What
watched
were you-
every piece of archival footage that exists on the internet, every documentary. I read every book, and then they asked me about, in true Hollywood fashion, it was, well, can you put yourself on tape? People
Right.
need to see it, because they wanted to shop it around all the Hollywood studios.
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't financed, and I did. I was doing Mr. Robot in New York. I took a day out, and I just watched Freddie Mercury interview over and over and over. It's one called, I think if you type in the musical prostitute.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
Mr.
that's-
Prostitute back
that's-
there. And he
yeah.
has a little laugh. He's got a cigarette.
Yeah.
I've seen it too.
Yeah.
I was going for the role as well, but they didn't
Oh,
call
were
me.
you?
Yeah. I got the costume, but
I sent that in, and then that got shopped around,
Yeah.
and then I didn't even wait to hear what was going to happen. I just flew out to London. I took singing lessons, dancing lessons, and just it turned out to be movement because he
right.
wasn't choreographed. It was all spontaneous with Freddie. So it was like going back into theater school. Every day I had a regiment.
it's funny now talking to you because I saw you as Freddie Mercury. By the time that movie was finished, I was like, man, I was like believing that you were him. So hearing your voice so different as well. You're obviously an American. Can you still do the voice? I'm sure you've got the movement.
Did you think a Brit was going to come in here for
Well,
a second?
I don't. I kind of did. I suppose. Yeah.
A lot of people do. They think I'm going to be British, which I think is great. I mean, that's pretty cool. Can I do the voice? Yeah. Well, even after this tape, I had Brian May and Roger Taylor. I think with it, everybody needed to keep seeing more, so we went to Abbey Road and we did 4 songs. And they videotaped it and
You actually had to sing. The songs.
and they taped me as if in the same way you guys have these cameras pulled out right now.
Yeah.
But afterwards, the writer Anthony McCartan and one of our producers Dennis O'Sullivan, they started just heaping questions at me as if we were in a press conference. They're like, "What was your childhood like? Tell us about this, that. Tell us who your best friend is." And I would answer, childhood. Well, it was an upheaval of an upbringing. Yeah. And
And a bad.
yeah, so still maybe still have it. It's been about a year now, guys, so take it easy on me. Get this. Then I had to show the tape to Brian May and Roger Taylor.
No,
Yeah.
Jim.
And I get to Roger's house and they're like, "Well, we're gonna watch your tape together." So I stood there and watched it in between Brian May, Roger Taylor, and they
No.
watched the 4 songs. Then it comes to the point where they ask, "Well, tell us who your best friend is. Who do you trust the most?" And I couldn't remember how I answered.
It was like, was it Brian or
Was it
Roger?
Brian
I can't
or
remember.
Roger? And that's when my knee started shaking the most. And in the interview, I said, "Well, Mary. It would have to be Mary's the person that I trust the most." And then I look at Brian, Roger, and they both take a beat, and then they go, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." And I was like, "Oh, thank God!" As if this isn't hard enough.
Yeah, you have to
passed the
impress
test.
the
Yeah.
people from actual Queen.
Freddie's had some pretty iconic looks as well. In fact, Liam's wearing one of them right now. So this is from '86 Wembley.
Yep.
Did you get to keep any of the outfits from the set afterwards?
I kept the studded armband.
That's a classic.
That's a classic.
From the
right?
Live Aid gig,
Yes.
85.
Yeah, I mean,
Nice.
come on. There's nothing more iconic than that. I didn't want it to, I wasn't going to open up a museum in my house, right? But there's a few things that I wanted, and that was one of them.
How is it? Because I kind of think sometimes, like, you're obviously a good-looking man, but I dare say a lot more striking is Freddie Mercury. Have you ever thought, geez, I actually look pretty good with that 70s hair and something like that big lizard costume that he wears? Have you ever thought about just making that your new vibe?
Not gonna lie, I've never grown a tash like that before, and it was nice to have that kind of slick look that he had in the 80s and that wardrobe. I mean, he pulled off some really killer looks.
Oh, yeah.
No one could ever get away with that. And he just had the charisma to put anything on. You know, when we were I did the costume fittings for the 70s stuff. A lot of the time we were picking out women's Victorian cloaks.
Yeah,
and
right.
things to
Yeah,
wear.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, stuff from the 30s, and I mean, the references were just out of this world. He literally wore a ton of women's clothes and then had women's clothes designed for him.
Yeah.
The platform heels or something that was a ton of fun. I liked the bell bottoms. I didn't mind. You know, at first I thought there's no way I'm gonna wear a sequin leotard and pull
it's
that
very
off.
revealing.
And then I'm gonna actually have to prance about on stage in it. And then, but by the end of the film, I was like, can you guys make that for me and Ruby Red, please?
Yeah, I'll take 2 home. The other thing I noticed about the movie is that obviously Freddie was born with 4 extra incisors that gave him the big teeth, and you have like massive fake chompers in for the movie. Was it hard to talk with him?
Man, yes, it was very, very difficult. It took me a while to get used to. I'm on Mr. Robot. I had them made super early because I knew we were gonna have them. I mean, his teeth. It was just as a part of who he was, especially without that mustache, you can really see them. And I had them made early. I would practice with them every night after Mr. Robot. So it would be switching off Elliot and trying to do Freddie. But by the end of it, man, I felt naked without them when I didn't have them.
You've got them in right now. You're just wearing them around.
Can you imagine? But there were a few days when I would walk into the makeup truck towards the end of the day, and you know, a lot of the people on set really only knew me as Freddie, because I don't say I'm a method actor in any way, but when you get to be Freddie Mercury all day, you want to be Freddie
You
Mercury
want to
all day.
own that for sure, for sure. Live Aid features quite heavily in it. It's kind of like it builds up to that, which is the classic. It's one of the all-time most famous sets anyone's ever played. Live Aid, Queen come out after a brief hiatus. They do 4 songs. You know, the faders are turned up a little bit. Obviously, that's the old Wembley, so you couldn't go back there. It's all different now. How many people you actually playing in front of when you were filming?
Yeah,
because it looks like there's 100,000 people there. It's, you know, live streaming around the world. Is it like a quiet set with just some filming people?
No, man, because to get hyped up for that, we went to an airstrip. We built this thing.
Yeah?
We built an old Wembley. I mean, it just blows my mind, and it never ceases to, being on a film set, what you get people to do. You got to think, here are people at the height of their craft, right? You have production designers out there. Our DP is phenomenal, Tom Siegel. This movie looks so rich.
Yeah.
And then, you know, luckily, where you're usually putting out flyers for background actors, and you never know who's going to come. But when you say Queen fans at the top of that list,
Yeah.
you get a lot of people out. I'll say this, yeah, and I'll leave the rest to the imagination. But getting out there and performing Live Aid in front of Queen fans is the greatest rush I could have ever asked for.
Hello, Rami.
Liam,
Yes.
How you
Lovely
doing?
to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
86 Wembley. What do we think?
oh, is that what that look is?
Yeah.
Yes,
it's
it
on
is.
It is.
Nice.
What's up, Ben? How are you? Looking sharp. I like
Thank
it. And
you.
you shaved, or do you always? is that real
No, I
mustache?
pumped this out in 2 days just for the interview.
No, he didn't. He
I've
always
been,
grows
I've
that.
been growing it for a year, yeah.
Oh,
In
yeah.
anticipation for this moment.
This works.
Thank you.
How much did this cost you?
It's like $20.
That's pretty cool.
But worth it for...
Can you describe the moment you were asked to play Freddie Mercury?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically going into catatonic shock. And I mean, he's the closest thing to a god. He's a rock god, right? So I just thought, if I'm gonna do this, I gotta dive in with everything I got. I went and did, you know, every music lesson I could possibly have. Worked with a movement teacher to show me how his mannerisms. Never touched a piano. Got some piano lessons out of it. You know, that just stunned me, and walked away from listening to that feeling emotional and happy and excited and sad, but uplifted. It's a marvel of a song. There's this artist who wants to express himself and still trying to figure out his identity, who he is, how he fits in. He's a foreigner, he's an immigrant child. Doesn't come to London till young adulthood. And then he's trying to discover himself sexually in a time when being anything other than straight was very stigmatized. So all of that you see come out when he's just unhinged on stage. He gets to be everything that he wants to be and share it with everyone in that audience.
Background, because I'd never really heard much about that.
Yeah.
So his parents were Parsi, whose ancestors came from Persia, and then the family immigrated to London. How challenging is it as an actor to depict someone's cultural background authentically?
It's very difficult because, I mean, we live in a world where it's ideal to find someone who is that exact nationality, and that's very hard to come by these days. I'm happy that a man named Rami Malek is playing a guy named Farouk Bulsara.
Rami Malek, where does that extend from?
That's Egyptian. I'm a first-generation American, and obviously that helped me connect in a certain way to Freddie, who was an immigrant and felt like a fish out of water. Sometimes I felt that way. We tried with all different sizes of teeth. We tried with his teeth, which are even bigger than the ones you see in the film. If you see him singing, whenever he's hitting a big note, you see all of those teeth in all of their glory.
Freddie's life was cut short by AIDS at age 45. How important do you think it is that we still talk about this issue?
It's as important as it ever was. It had a very, very strong impact on me, this tragic theft of life that happened to one of the most beautiful human beings you could come across. And I don't think we shy away from anything, but it's only to shine a light on just how gorgeous this human being was and how full of life he was, and celebrate him.
What's your dream gig?
Oh, Freddie Mercury, without a shadow of a doubt.
Okay, cool.
I can call it quits after this. Retirement. Good night, everyone.
There you go, see you later.
Thank you.
What happens when you elevate a human being beyond the level of human? Should an icon be loved or feared?
I think what you just said is that they're human, right? So I think it's everyone else that raises them up, but I think Freddie really just saw himself as being human and no different from anybody else. Of course, he had talents, but I think there are talents and gifts everywhere. He just had an opportunity that he created for himself.
You've seen the movie. Do you see yourself or do you see Freddie?
That's a rough question. I see a combination of the two, I hope.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you these cool shades.
Thanks, man.
These are Boss shades.
Where did you get these?
Bangkok for like $2. And they're already selling in America for like $40.
Are they really? Why are these so special?
There you go.
Go see Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm doing all the things I said I'd never do, Marissa. Thanks for coming out in the middle of the day. I didn't expect to see so many of you.
Yes, very warm reception.
That's really nice.
How does it feel to get this kind of reception from your fellow actors?
It's pretty great. Yeah. I don't know who I'd want it more from, I guess. Yeah.
Well, yes, I think we're all here to hear. Yes. So obviously you're here today in some part, large part, because of Bohemian Rhapsody, but I would love to dig into the Rami story. It's an interesting story. And you've accomplished so much in such a short period, which I think is really part of what's so fascinating about you. But you grew up just over the hill in Sherman Oaks.
Yeah.
Go Sherman.
Yeah.
Any Sherman Oaksers in the house? Is that what you're called, Sherman Oaksers? I just made that up. What was your life like growing up in the Valley?
Well, Graham does have this funny story. Graham King produced Bohemian Rhapsody, and one day he said to, I think Fox and Well, a number of studios. I found our Freddie, and you know, they said, "Well, where did you find your Freddie Mercury?" And I go, Sherman Oaks.
Unexpected place.
Yeah, unexpected place.
And they said, "Where's that?"
Where's
No.
that? Yeah. Yeah, a bunch of British people going, "Excuse me?"
What were you like as a kid?
What was I like as a kid? I don't know. I mean, that's a difficult question.
What would your parents say you were
I
like?
think
as a kid?
I was very unusual, but we could all say we're very unusual. I let my imagination run wild because it was going to anyway.
You didn't want to put it in a cage?
I didn't put it in a cage.
Yeah.
It felt like it was bursting to get out, and I really didn't know how that was going to play out in my life. But
And how did that manifest? Did you put on little plays with yourself?
yeah, but by myself.
By
I
yourself.
was a little too reluctant to do it with other people, so it was just kind of like silent theater for myself.
An audience of one.
An audience of one.
And some of you may know or not know that he has a twin brother.
I do, yeah. I do.
How did that affect your childhood? Because I find that to be such a fascinating experience that probably very few of us can understand. What did that feel like as a kid?
It was phenomenal. Well, yeah. All of a sudden, the flood of memories come rushing.
It can't be totally easy all the time, too, I'm guessing.
No, it's not. But at the same time, you grow up and you have someone who you can just spend hours alone with in a room while your parents are doing their own thing, and you just make things up, right? We didn't need much. We kind of came up with games. We came up with things to do all the time, and we just joked around with one another and bounced ideas off of one another, and that was it.
So nice to come into the world with a best friend.
Yeah, I remember one day we wanted to play like one-on-one basketball, and we made a hoop out of just a wire hanger and put it on top of our closet, and then slam the door in it, and then play basketball with just socks, like you do. Right? But we all did that and it was just a it opened up a world of creativity, I think.
Wow.
Having someone who looked just like you could trust them, and you could kind of try anything. So I guess I'm crediting him for all of this success.
That's great. I love that. And what was your earliest exposure to acting specifically? Was it something that you saw that really stuck with you, or did your parents take you to see a performance?
No, they didn't take me to see it. I lived in the Valley, and I swear to you, you probably won't believe this, but I didn't even know that this side of Los Angeles existed till I was about 16 or 17.
Wow.
And that sounds crazy, but that's how sheltered I was. I mean, I just went to school and hung out with my friends and knew that Hollywood was somewhere around, but I didn't realize it
Were
was
your
this
parents
close.
sheltering you from Hollywood, or they wanted you to be more focused on academics?
Yeah, I think it was focused on academics. I'm a first generation American, so they came from Cairo, and they were just seeking a better life. And I think they thought, if we're paying for you to go to school here, you're going to do things that help you excel, and that was to be in politics or law or a doctor. And so I took debate class in high school, and that didn't really work out for me. But I had a great substitute teacher that came in one day, and he was kind of a comedian. His name was Lester Berry, and he could recognize, hey, you're not really cut out for this, but you can do this thing called a dramatic or humorous interpretation. I said, what's that? And he said, well, you just look at a play, and you can basically have it in front of you, and you act it out. And he gave me this one-man show. It's called Zoo Man and the Sign by Charles Fuller. And I remember taking it home, and I just read through it as fast as I could, and something happened. And I remember looking at it, and the first line was, my name is Zoo Man, Z-O-O-M-A-N, I'm from the bottom. And I just heard myself at, 13, come up with this new character that someone else had written that I just hadn't created in my head. And I felt powerful in a way. And I showed it to him about a week later, and he looked at me, and I think he had this look of, oh, that's not bad. I'm going to enter you in a competition. So,
Oh, wow. In your school?
At my school, but with other schools involved too. And so I invited my very strict father and mother to come see this and try to broaden their horizons.
Right.
And that was my most, I think, feared audience.
I'm sure.
But,
We've all
yeah,
been there.
Yeah.
And what was their reaction to see you perform in that way?
It was very, very special because I'd never seen them react quite like that, and my dad got emotional for the first time I'd ever seen him emotional.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
And this is when you were 13?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I'm on stage, I'm having this moment with my dad with a bunch of other people. And, but then I thought, wow, something really special is happening here. And I like it because it's something's happening that's never happened before. And I just realized in that moment the power that this all has.
Wow. And then did you instantly pursue acting opportunities in school and plays?
I
and such?
did. I jumped into the theater department at Notre Dame High School. I had a great theater teacher. Her name is Judy Weldon. She's no longer there. And I tried to do everything there was, and I didn't always get cast in the plays, or sometimes I had a lot of small parts in high school, but I just loved it. And my senior year, I did get to play John Proctor in The Crucible, and
that's a good one.
yeah, well, I don't know how good it is at 17 or 18.
Right.
I think I just ended up yelling all of the
Sure.
lines.
Well, that's most high school performances.
Yeah.
A lot of loud talking.
Yeah, it was.
And accents and such.
That's exactly
But
what
that's
it
a lot
was.
of dense material for a 17-year-old.
I mean, at 17, we were doing Chekhov and Bernard Shaw and Shakespeare. She was great. I mean, she got me ready for things very, very
And you went
early.
away to college to Indiana.
Well, she was like, maybe you should think about doing this for a living. And I thought, well, I do. I really love it. But we were just working together a second ago on a podcast. Sorry.
It happens sometimes. People see friendly
does.
faces in the audience.
Where were we?
Did she encourage you to go away to school?
Yes, she did. I should just look at your notes and just start. She did. She said, "Do you want to do?" I said, "Yes, I do want to do this." And she said, "Why don't we take a look at some colleges that have good theater programs?" And I did. I thought, let's go to Chicago. Chicago's got great theater. So I was figuring out how I was going to get enough money to take a trip to go visit these schools, and she said, listen, I had auditioned for all these schools as well, and one of them was in Indiana, and they actually wanted to pay for me to go visit the school. My twin brother also auditioned, and we both got in. So I got a call, and I said, I'd love to come to your school, but is there a way I can make a stop in Chicago before? And
It's not too far.
It's not too far, no. They said, sure. And then I went on to Evansville, Indiana. And we take off from Chicago, and we fly over this small city, this tiny city, and I go, thank God it's not that place. That was Indianapolis. So when I start to descend into Evansville, I look out the window, and I couldn't see anything. And I immediately went, holy shit, brace for impact. Right? I'm not kidding. I thought something had happened. And I quickly realized, no, I was visiting a school in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And I went that night to the school, and I saw Merchant of Venice put on by a bunch of kids who, they made me scared. They were so good.
That's a good feeling.
No.
I thought actors like to be scared. You guys always say, I like to be scared. No.
Yeah, I guess we do. Because I went.
You wouldn't do this job if you
No.
didn't like to be scared.
No.
I mean, it's pretty scary.
It's pretty tough, pretty scary. It's very tough and very scary.
So did you immediately pursue the Hollywood experience after college, the audition gauntlet? Did you come home, or did you want to stay in that region?
I auditioned for even more school. I went to audition for grad school, but I just couldn't afford it. I thought, I'm already in debt from school, from studying theater. There's no way, as much as I would love to learn more about this, I do want to kind of give it a go too. And I went to New York, and I lived with a couple friends in a one-bedroom apartment. That was not fun.
Yeah, that's never fun.
But we did a bunch of theater all over New York. We put up our own plays. The school that I went to had writers and directors, and so we all just marshaled our forces together and.
So you had a good network of friends from college who had moved to New York.
Yeah.
Okay. That helps.
It does. It does. And then one day I went back to Los Angeles to visit family, and my theater director at Evansville, he said, I want you to meet a casting director. It was Mally Finn, and she's passed on, but she was incredible. And she looked at me and she said, just stay here for a while. You know Los Angeles, you grew up here, give it a go. I think something could happen for you. And I was like, yeah, right, okay. Why not? Okay, I'll move everything back home, and ended up moving back in.
With your parents?
Sadly, yes. I did save
We've
money.
all been there.
Yeah, save some money.
It's a smart decision if you can do it. Yeah.
And then she said, listen, get your headshot and resume and send it to every agent you can, and go into every film school and just leave a box of them everywhere. Well, I went and did everything she said. I sent them to every agent, every school, and every casting agent as well. Yeah, and one day I got a call after doing this for quite some time and not hearing.
How long did it take to hear back?
Oh, a long time.
Like a year, a couple of years?
At least a year, yeah, before I even got one phone call out of it.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I might have got like a school play, a student film, not a school play, a student film.
Right.
Going back in history.
That's why we're here. This is the deep dive.
Yeah, the deep dive. And well, where was it? We were in an apartment at that time, and I remember stuffing these envelopes every morning, and I could hear my dad at one point say to my mom, that's a tenacious kid you have. And I was like, oh, yes.
That's a big compliment.
It was. From him it was.
Dad's gonna be tough.
Yeah. And we were living in just a 2-bedroom apartment. It was 4 of us, and I was just sleeping on the couch at that point because I wanted to get up early and get all this stuff done.
Did you have a day job during this time?
Oh yeah.
What's the worst day job you had?
I had some pretty crazy day jobs, but one was I was working as a busboy for a long time at, I think it's called the Rockwell now, where they do all those musicals on Vermont. You know what I'm talking about?
They apparently do, yeah.
And I remember one day my boss came up to me, and I've been working my ass off there, and he looked at my cup of espresso that I made for someone, and he said, "That is an inferior macchiato." And that's when I was like, listen, something doesn't work out with this acting thing. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I cannot listen to you anymore.
Those words,
I still hear them all the time.
Well, fortunately, your macchiato skills are not inherent to your current your current line of work.
But one day, these manila envelope stuffing, it did work out, and well, I'll tell you what happened. I got a call from a casting agent, and I just submitted online myself to everything I could find that was like a line here or there, and Mara Casey from the Gilmore Girls called, and she said, could I speak to Rami Malek's agent? And I said,
Speaking.
Exactly. I said, speaking. And she said, well, we'd like to have Rami come in for the role of this. And she goes, does he have, is he SAG? And I said, no, actually, he's not. And she said, and who are you who represents him? And I'm Rami Malek. I'm currently representing myself. And she started laughing. And she's like, Rami Malek representing himself? Are you a SAG actor? And I said, no, but we can work on that, can't we? And she's laughing. She continues to laugh. She's
love
like,
that.
listen, honey, call me back when you get reps and when you're SAG. We'll figure this out.
So great.
And I said, listen, you're laughing right now. We're having a good time. It's 3 lines on the page. How long is it going to take? I'm in Sherman Oaks. I can be in Burbank in 15 minutes. And she said, you know what? Come on in. Come on in. Yes!
Oh, I love that story so much.
I ran my little butt over there. And get this, so I sit down and I read with her, and she read with me a few times. We had a talk, and she said, come back for a call back later tonight. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
So I go into a coffee shop, and I'm waiting and trying to work on these 3 lines over and over, which we've all done, right? How many different ways can you say 3 lines? And I get this call from one of the agents I'd been sending all these headshot and resumes to. Same day I have my first meeting with an agent. My brain's about to explode. I have a call back and a meeting with an agent after all this time. I couldn't believe it.
I love it.
And I went to see Kim Dore at a place called Defining Artists. She's not there, but they still are. And that was a very nurturing place for a while, and I can say that because she agreed to sign me later that day.
This is all the same day?
All the same day. I went in for the callback. I'm feeling like, okay, I'm on cloud 9. I don't need to get this. It'd be great. I go home after that, and the next day, I got a call in the morning from Mara Casey, and she said, they liked you, and you're going to be on Gilmore Girls. And you're going to get your SAG card.
Oh, that's so
But
great.
that took me about 2 years to pay for it. And I'm not kidding. It took so long. I was like, well, I'm SAG eligible for so long.
Wow. And you played a young man named Andy.
God, this is going to take more than
No,
an hour.
we're not going to do. But I did interview you at Toronto a couple years ago.
Yes,
we
I
talked
remember.
about this. We talked about this seminal moment, and you said something that
I think you got me in trouble with I got myself in trouble. More on this later.
Yeah. But you said something that made me laugh, and anyone who's watched Gilmore Girls can understand. You said, I'd never been around people who spoke that quickly. And you said that was your hardest, even just jumping in for those 3 lines. And he played a friend of Rory's at the newspaper, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And that was funny because, yes, of course,
Yes,
Andy's
of course.
indelibly etched in your memory. But
He
tell me
is.
what it was like to jump into that, because that show is super, super unique in the writing and also the banter that Amy
It
Sherman
is.
Palladino created.
Yes. She's incredible, by the way.
She's very special, yeah.
She's very special. I'm a huge fan of
Maisel?
Aren't you?
It's great.
Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yes.
And Rachel Brosnahan. That girl can act. All right.
That's a good show.
We're here to talk.
We're here to talk about you. But what did you
Where
learn? I mean,
were
it was
we?
a
What did
small
I learn?
part, but
Yes.
What did you learn?
I
on the
would. My
set?
knees were shaking underneath the table, and they were speaking so fast. I was trying to remember my 3 lines that I'd probably said 100,000 times, and I started yelling them. I remember looking and saying, I can barely hear anybody talk. Why is everybody so quiet? And I just was used to being on stage. No one really ever prepared me for a microphone and a camera.
Right, inside voices. Voices. Well, and
Am I too loud?
No, you're perfect now. You have since learned how to speak appropriately to the room you're in, so well done.
Thank you.
So, not too long after that, you jumped into a giant franchise called Night at the Museum, which is, I think, earned $540 million worldwide and all the sequels, which is an amazing experience. Tell me what it was like to be on that set. We had Robin Williams, Mickey Rooney, Dick Van Dyke, Sean Levy directing. I mean, Ben Stiller obviously starring. That was a huge opportunity. How did that feel?
That was unreal.
Yeah.
I could not believe I got that job. I was over the moon. I mean, doing a film, a major
Huge
motion picture, a huge film.
And how did you get that role specifically? Had someone seen you in one of the TV shows that you had
No, I think that had a lot to do with playing a pharaoh and me being Egyptian.
Okay. But how incredible that someone who is actually Egyptian can play that part. That's pretty special.
Yes. I mean, they did see some other Egyptian actors. They saw a lot of Middle Eastern actors, so And then I think I hit it off with Sean, who's become
He's a great
very
guy.
dear friend, great guy. He does Stranger Things now and
Very
a bunch of
congenial
other
Canadian
things.
man. Yes.
Yeah,
He's
that's
very
exactly.
sweet.
Yeah, he's very sweet. You know, this is a good story. I went to shoot in New York. We shot the exteriors first and
Of the museum
of the
exterior.
museum. And at one point in Night at the Museum, the first one, there was a moment where we have to go outside in the snow. So
Right.
me and Sacagawea and Ben Stiller's, yeah. It's funny when you think
It's
about
funny
it.
when you
and
say it out
like
loud,
that. And Larry, the night guard of the
Yeah.
museum, played by Ben Stiller, and Robin Williams with half a body at that point.
Yes, I remember.
I think I'm reliving all of this. We have to go outside the museum in the freezing cold. So we loot the what is all the clothes that get left behind are left in a you know what I'm lost and found. So we loot the lost and found. It becomes a game show
Yes.
here. And I'm wearing this big puffy jacket as a pharaoh and these big kind of snow boots that have rainbows on them, and I start improvising with Ben Stiller. For the first, he starts throwing lines at me, going off book, and then I'd start going off book.
Wow.
I had really prepared myself because I knew that might happen.
Yeah.
So I thought of some stuff to come up with, and I went home that night and I saw all those kids from New York that I went to college with, took them out for drinks at a bar, and I still had eyeliner on. I could not get this kohl eyeliner
It was
off.
very intense, yeah.
Very intense. And I just couldn't believe it. Get to buy my friends a round of drinks, and for the first time, and just improv with Ben Stiller and Robin Williams. I mean, I was over the moon. I go back to LA, we're about to shoot in Vancouver, and I see that my date to shoot keeps getting pushed. And I thought, man, what's going on? Something's going on. And I got a call from Kim Dorr, my agent, and she said, do you know if there's a reason why they have another breakdown out for the character of Achman Ra? I said, what? I go, this makes so much sense. Well, it turns out that while I was doing this film, I came up with this idea that Achman Ra was trapped in, a sarcophagus at Cambridge University, as it said in the script, right? So he'd become kind of like this Cambridge dandy, right? So maybe I had taken it a little too far. Yeah. And with the blue puffer jacket and the snow boots and the eyeliner that I couldn't get off for days, I think the movie studio, Fox, inevitably would do Bohemian Rhapsody, so this all has a great payback. But they were a little concerned about my depiction of the Egyptian pharaoh. So fortunately, Sean goes, come on up, we're gonna do a makeup test, and you gotta give me a different read on this character.
Even though you'd already shot the exterior.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
They were ready to move on.
Oh boy.
My first job, I was like, this business is tough enough, right?
It's so tough.
I mean, come on, give me a break. But fortunately, I think Stiller had some faith in me, and Sean had some faith in me, and they pushed, and fortunately, I made my way back in there. I clawed my ass back in there. And
So how much did you learn from that about there's a point to which maybe over-interpreting the script, or maybe bringing too much of yourself to it, or did it just
I'm not going to say that was my fault.
Okay.
Looking back on it, I think I really enjoyed what I was doing.
Okay.
I might have watched Pirates of the Caribbean a few too many times. But I was like, hey, I mean, you got one shot at this, right? I'm going to be bold.
And there's nothing to say that Pharaoh wouldn't have had a lot of swagger. There's nothing to say that.
I agree. I mean, I remember at one point I was coming out of the sarcophagus later on, and I said, one thing I'm not going to get rid of is like throwing through the wrapping over my shoulder. And I don't know if it ever made it into the movie, but it was the last thing I was kind of holding on to. My last bastion of saying, this is the way I'm going to do it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. You asserted your artistry from day one, which has worked out well for you, I think.
It was a good lesson. I mean,
Yeah.
it was tough. It was tough every day. I haven't really ever said this, but there were days when I don't think ever, had closure with that whole experience of, not quite feeling good enough to be there. Like I was always on my back foot.
And what's interesting too, and probably why the business is as tough as it is, that no one pulled you aside in the moment and said, maybe let's tone it down a little bit. You're hearing this third hand, you're hearing that there's another breakdown floating around. Why didn't someone come to you and say, this might be a little bit far flung from what we were thinking?
I think Sean Levy was actually quite happy with it. It was.
So it was once it went to the studio level and they were like,
yeah. But you know what? It's
their prerogative, obviously. It's their movie.
It's their movie. That's what I learned real quick. It's not about you. And once you start to make it about you, then you're in trouble. So it was a really good lesson, is that you start looking around and you go, oh yeah, there's Robin Williams and there's Ben Stiller and there's a whole cast of characters right here and an entire crew and millions of dollars that are going into this, and I'm one tiny part of it. It doesn't mean you can't make your own choices and come in with what you believe is right, but it did put into perspective that it's just not all about you, man.
That's a valuable lesson to learn early. In 2010, you appeared in The Pacific, which I loved. Did you watch The Pacific miniseries on HBO? It's stunning. Produced by Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks, obviously. Yeah. What do you remember about your first interaction with Tom? Because I know he was apparently so taken with you that he cast you in his movie Larry Crown later. And he's talked about you, and he said that he was very impressed with you in your first audition. But tell me what you remember about that.
Tom's been great. Tom Hanks is exactly, I don't know if you know him or met him, but he's exactly what you want him to be. He's the guy you see is the guy you see. He's extremely special, and so is Mr. Spielberg. I can call Tom, but I can't call Steven Spielberg Steven. So
for now, at least.
Still something I'm working towards.
Sure.
Tom, I remember seeing his notes on my audition, and he said, he was talking about another actor and me in the same breath, and he said, Malek is haunting, and I was like, ooh, wow. That's good.
And you played a real person.
I had actually auditioned for Meg Lieberman, and Meg Lieberman put me in this as a, what was it? It was for Medium. Remember that show, Medium? Sure, yeah. And I did a guest spot on that, and she brought me back with the help of another producer named Kirk Sadusky, who they came together and realized that maybe there was a part in there for me. Anyway, Tom saw this audition, and I'd never worked harder on anything, because I thought I'd seen the Band of Brothers and blew my mind. Yeah. I thought, if I can get this job, this would be everything. It would be everything. And I put everything I had into that, and I guess Tom liked it because he said that, and I came back a couple times, and then I got to read with Joe Mazzello, who is
future
bandmate in Bohemian Rhapsody, but also the young boy in Jurassic Park.
Yes. Can he call Steven Spielberg Steven?
I think he can, because
he's known him a long time.
Steven calls him Joey still.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes I called.
But the character you were auditioning to play, was it Snafu from the beginning?
The first read I had was for Lecky.
Okay.
And I think I did that way too earnestly, and they gave me another shot, thankfully, at Snafu, who was this.
What was his backstory?
He's Cajun. Muriel Snafu Shelton from Louisiana, and he was a real human being. I did a lot of research. Even during the auditions, I wanted to nail the accent, so I went and used some of that money I'd saved up to get a dialect coach.
Your accent's great. It's not overdone, which I know for that.
Well, I think the first audition I had was a little overdone. But then I thought, I didn't like it. I knew I had to rein it in. So I found a dialect coach who was actually from Louisiana, or had spent a lot of time there. His name was Jerome Butler, and he was terrific. And so much of that character came from that dialect coach. It just, as soon as I heard the musicality of what we were doing together, I was like, that's all there. Yeah. So much was there. And then read this book that it was based on called With the Old Breed, and it's still to this day one of my favorite books. It's the most visceral interpretation of war and soldiers in combat, that Marines in combat, that I've ever read. And I do like reading about history and those types of things. Anyway, I just worked on it as hard as I could over and over, and finally they told me I was going to test with Joe Mazzello. I was coming in to read with him and all the three main characters. I was like, one of the fifth or sixth characters down the line, but for some reason they brought me in to do this test. And I walked in, and Hanks was there. It was at his company, Playtone. All these executives and producers, and then all these guys outside waiting to come in. Everybody's, trying to pretend they're not freaking out, but you're pretty nervous. Tom walks in, leaves a bunch of dimes over his Coke machine, and he says, anybody want a Coke? Take a dime. They're only a dime. That's Tom Hanks for you. He's just trying to make everybody at ease. Walk in. Tom, he goes, he had just seen Night at the Museum. He goes, I'm a big fan of your work. And I just looked and I go, likewise. And they all laughed, so it was good. It was an icebreaker, but I was definitely not trying to make a joke. I didn't know what the hell to say.
Well, you were very haunting in your delivery of that.
I guess
that's
so.
Right. In keeping.
And I went in and did this audition with Joe Mazzello, and it was a really dark scene where my character is actually throwing some pebbles into this sawed-off head of a Japanese enemy who's been sitting there dead for a while. And it was a very, very intense scene, and I remember the casting assistant was getting really in our faces with the camcorder. Moving, more than I'd ever seen a casting assistant move, and older than I'd ever seen a casting assistant. And I realized that's no ordinary casting assistant, that's Steven Spielberg. And then I went, holy shit. Don't stop talking. Say your lines. And in that moment, I remember it's either all gonna go to shit, right, or something really great is gonna happen. Let's pick the right move here, Rami. And fortunately, I did. I gathered all my confidence, and I said, let's give Steven the best show you could give him right now. And I don't know if that happened, but I walked out of there.
It did, yeah.
And I got the job, and I could not believe it.
It's amazing.
Tom Hanks. This is the first time you'll hear Tom Hanks go, you need to start smoking cigarettes, and you need to, I was my size, and he goes, you need to lose weight, because I need everybody to look like they were in that period. This has to be as accurate as we can make it. They were all smoking, and in the Pacific, they were on the verge of dying. Wow. And as soon as he said that, I did everything I could to just get in shape. I was already smoking, so that was taken care of.
You were already method on that front.
Yeah. I got there, and they put us through a boot camp. Is this too much information?
No, it's never too much, no. And you shot in the South Pacific.
We went to Australia. And every night I just went home. Even before that, I knew I had this job for 6 months, so I just every night spent time working on this character. Just went and did my process of getting prepared and reading that book and sitting with whatever those stories. There's horrific stories. There were some really awful things happened in the Pacific Theater that the world was not aware of, and that made me, more inclined to tell that story. And we went to Australia, and at that point I was like, do I even need the boot camp? I knew I felt really good about it, but I was like, if that's gonna help, that's gonna help. And they had real Marines there training us, gave us these weapons from the 1940s. I was a mortarman, so I had to learn how to shoot a 60mm mortar with my new friend, Joseph Mazzello of Jurassic Park fame. And we figured all these things out together, and for days we just walked around with carrying these rifles, these M1 Garands, learn how to fire them, learn how to fire this mortar, something I'm oddly probably still skilled at because of how intense the training was. And that's it. We learned how to do everything that they could do in the 1940s over the course of days. And one night, I remember being out there with these guys. We'd forged such a great bond. And one night at 4 o'clock in the morning, I see and hear this alarming gunfire coming from about 200 yards away. And I thought, am I hallucinating? I mean, we've been out here for a bunch of days, and
Right.
I thought, man, maybe I've put too much into this. But no, this army of men comes charging at us, yelling bonsai and all these Japanese words, and screaming at us. And sure enough, there's gunfire coming at us, and all of a sudden it's like, men, to your stations, and we all get our things together, and quickly you realize, oh my God, this whole time we've been training, they've been training an entire Japanese army as well.
My God.
And so in the middle of the night, it's like, I'm gonna cry talking about this. It's so fucking scary. But we ended up, manning our positions in the middle of the night in pitch black darkness. And I swear, it's not real, it's not happening, but your instincts kick in, and all of a sudden at this point we're firing blanks right back at them, firing mortars that they pop off. They don't go as far, but they go at this army, and we're in the middle of some fictitious combat that seems real in the moment, and I would never in any way compare it to anything that these men went through, but it gives you the tiniest taste.
And were they shooting this, or this was just
No,
for
this was
an
just for
exercise?
us, yeah.
God.
Just as an exercise to get us
Wow.
ready.
Well, there's a reason that the show feels
The
so real,
show
because
is like,
it felt real to you.
Oh, I mean, at one point, we're coming off of these boats in the Pacific, the literal Pacific, that are landing crafts that actually hit the beach. And we're meant to jump off of them and hit the beach, take over this beach. Well, we planned for about 2 days to do the one shot, this beach landing in episode 5. There's explosions everywhere, and they're marked by orange cones.
Right.
Hundreds of them. The cameramen are... we get ready to do this. We rehearse it 25 times. We did exactly 25 rehearsals of it. We're out there. Everybody, there's no place to use the bathroom on this. Guys are getting seasick. We're out for 3 days getting ready to do this beach landing. It's all going to happen in one take. There's going to be, all the cameramen are out there. It's the best cameramen you could ever ask for. They're all outfitted in camouflage gear, as we are. And I thought, that's odd. And they're the guys holding the cameras, but what I later found out is, in case anything goes to shit, the camera falls on their shoe or on their leg. I'm like, how bad is it going to get if these guys are going to drop their cameras?
Right.
Well, I quickly found out. We get ready to do this one take, and I've never jumped out of a Amtrak hitting the beach, but I got to tell you that preparation that these Marines gave us, it did help me a little bit to think, okay, I can do this. There were things I never thought I would be able to do, but in that moment, I prepared myself, and we got ready. The boat comes out of a larger boat. We hit the ocean, and there's the beach. Except this time it looks entirely different because these 100 orange flags and cones have been pulled out. And we were told to memorize where they were, and I did, but
Oh my God.
I don't know where the fuck they are. So the fear of death is in you, right?
Wow.
And these guys are firing these what are they, 50 caliber machine guns out at the beach. Guns are, they were being fired out, and slowly but surely, we are going to hit that beach. Explosions everywhere. Already I see boats hitting the beach. Other actors and other units are hitting the beach, and that's another moment. It's like, oh my God, this is happening. And then you hear, all right, lock and load, and there we go. We're locked and load with these rifles. I'm carrying a 60 millimeter mortar on my back. That's an extra 60 pounds with my pack, with these boots that no one should have ever gone to war with. And, right? And finally, these explosions are going. There's a few stuntmen on, right? If you can't get off the boat, they will throw you off the boat, right? Because nothing can stop. So I'm like, I don't care how much this fucker weighs, I'm getting off this boat.
Oh my God.
And I jump and I land in the water with my helmet. I'm soaked. I'm trying to carry this thing. I just try to get to the beach, right? And I push, and literally, you can't hear anything. Things are exploding in front of you. I look and I see Joe, and looks like he's shitting his pants. But I also think, oh man, this guy's really in it, and he's a great actor. So this is good. This is good. I'm just slowly trying to charge up the beach, and if there's explosions to my left, my right, they're all way too close. And sure enough, you see even the camera operators, that's when the cameras go down and you're like, yep, you're glad you're wearing fatigues. And you just keep going. And there's blood and explosions all over the place. And finally, you hear a cut. And it's just like, oh my God. What's day 2 gonna be like?
That's the ultimate be careful what you wish for, right?
I've never told that story outside of like our group of friends, by the way. These guys, we all keep up, by the way. It is a good story.
It's a very good story.
We really did become like brothers. It's crazy.
Well, it shows.
And Joe and I, Joe, to have him while playing Freddie Mercury, he ended up playing the bass player, John Deacon, and I could not have done it without him. Because every time I had any problem, we had a shorthand at that point.
Wow.
Yeah, it's remarkable. It's what one actor can give another actor.
That's amazing.
And Tom Hanks always told me, he said, one tool sharpens another, and I can definitely say it for that kid.
Tom, what a dreamboat, really.
Tell me about it.
He's a really special gift to us as humans.